Hello, everybody, and welcome here. How are we all doing on this Monday? Supposed to be summer, but I'm feeling a bit autumnal. As I was just saying to Michael, we definitely had 4 seasons in one day yesterday. So I am extremely excited to have Michael Hand here. Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Emma. Lovely to be here.
And you. Okay, so we are going to kick off today and talk all about Michael and his journey in property. And also, what I really love about Michael, and we probably met 3 years ago, was it, Michael? 2 years
Two,
ago? 2
two,
years ago,
two
was
years
it?
ago.
2 years ago, yeah. And what I really love about Michael is the fact that he's been able to utilize so much of his kind of past, his present, and where he sees himself going. It's an incredibly powerful journey. So we will be jumping into that in a moment. So Michael, please, just for anyone who perhaps doesn't know you, do you want to give yourself a brief intro just to let people know a little bit more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks again for having me on here, Emma. But yeah, I suppose high level, my story, if I was on X Factor, would be I had a corporate career in media and marketing for 20 years in London, running various size businesses. Uh, COVID happened, as many of us did, spent a lot of time at home with the family. And for me, it was a big time to reassess. And then it was at that point I sort of jumped out of the corporate world, and at the same time, we're doing a big project on our own house, and I really, really loved it. Unlike most people who are terrified by doing any sort of work on their own home, I actually felt very, very alive and just felt something hit me. And it was on the back of that I decided to jump sort of feet first into the world of property, which is where we met. And yeah, I won't go into the whole potted history, but sort of went quote unquote full time into the world of property and went deep into learning the different tactics and skills and ways you can make property work, which is of course where we met. So yeah, that's the very, very high level version of my little story.
Fantastic. No, absolutely. So let's jump straight in. So I love that story. You know, there was a lot of people, wasn't there, over COVID, that you suddenly realized that as much as those quick rushed weekends, those kind of long holidays when you're working, actually kids are really fun to be around and you can have a really nice time. And when we were sort of had them over the COVID time, it kind of made you realize that actually you want to spend some more time with them. So you literally jumped ship. And I remember when we met, so I used to mentor for Touchstone, and that's where we met. You came to my table, and I did some mentoring with you. And yeah, I remember you coming in really kind of like bit like rabbit in a headlight. Oh my gosh, I've made all these decisions. I'm not quite sure what to do. And yeah, so tell us where you were then, because you basically, that's quite a big, scary jump. You literally had what I would consider to be a pretty prestigious, really well paid job. And then suddenly you decided to make some changes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I'm not advocating this for lots of people because, yeah, you know, you get to a certain stage in life where you've climbed the corporate, you know, ladder. You know, you're earning a decent amount of money and you've got a lifestyle that's aligned to that as well. And so, making the decision to sort of move out of that world is it's quite a brave one. Some might say fairly stupid. I was really fortunate in that my wife kind of realized that, you know, I was fairly unfulfilled, but also I had a lot of energy and passion for doing something else. But the strange thing was I didn't really know exactly what that looked like or where that was going to be directed. And I think where you were brilliant, actually, and you know, I'm not going to spend the entire hour talking about how amazing you are, or probably, you know, 55 minutes perhaps, but was you were really helpful in sort of helping me recognize, actually, you know, you've got this, you don't have to sort of completely leave that world that you were in. But you also helped me gain some clarity in terms of how I could harness that and sort of point it in the right direction as it related to property. So I think one example that really sticks in my mind actually was because I'm from Manchester originally. but live down in Hertfordshire now, and we've been based here for about 10 years. And I had this real sort of, I guess, mindset, a limiting mindset, belief, whatever you want to call it, around, because property prices were so high in this area, that I had to go and invest somewhere that was a little bit more affordable. And so the whole point of me moving into property was very much a lifestyle-based decision. I wanted to move away from that classic 9 to 5 and enjoy a different type of life. And actually then what I found myself doing was spending a lot of time in my car on the M1 and the M6, driving up to Manchester, looking at all these properties. I was looking in Southport, I was looking in the Lake District. And I think it was one session we had together where you said, why are you doing that? Like, why don't you look in your own area? And I sort of said, well, I just can't afford to. And then you took me through this sort of exercise where actually you kind of helped me rethink that entire, false belief that actually you can invest wherever you're from in the country. It's completely possible. And that for me was a huge light bulb moment. I went from kind of traveling up the motorway on a weekly basis to actually ended up buying the house next door. So couldn't have been more local in the end. So again, a massive thank you, because that was a big a mindset shift that really sort of transformed my own investment journey at that stage, which was, I think I'd probably only been really in the program sort of 3 or 4 months at that point as well. So that was huge. So massive thanks for doing that.
And it is really interesting, isn't it? And I do love sort of new people, new mentees and things like that, because I love digging down and understanding what resources we have. Because we tend to, don't we, when we start something new, it's almost like we forget everything that we've had before. And it's kind of like, I know nothing. And it's actually, it tends to be that we know a lot. And the local thing for me is huge. Everyone seems to think, oh, well, let's pay for a course and then spend my whole time going up and down, as you said, the country. And I say to people, did you pay all this money to become a taxi driver? Because that's inherently what you're doing. And you miss out all of those, what I call creating your own luck. Because when you're looking next door, as you literally did, you'll find that so many opportunities come up. So I think that's really key. But one of the things that you, and I remember that was very interesting with you, there was two issues that you kind of said. And so one of them was you were kind of like, well, what am I going to do for kind of money? I mean, I've got a bit of money, but it's not going to keep me sustainable. And there was a couple of things that I know we looked through with that. So one of them, we looked at your own property, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But the one that I really loved, and I don't know if you remember, but you had this light bulb moment, is I said, you've worked with a lot of quite, successful people, haven't you? And I reckon that they might have money. And you were like, you're so right. Yes, there are a lot of people that do those things. And suddenly, whether you've, inherently borrowed from them or not, I don't know. But it suddenly kind of, for me, was a light bulb moment. How did you feel initially, knowing that you potentially had quite a limited pot, to then sort of having that mindset where actually, there's a lot of money out there. It's just knowing where your money is.
Yeah, I think that was a big light bulb moment. And I think, and actually another one that you are wholly responsible for actually was, you were talking to me about what was your previous career and what did you do? And then, I think one of the things, bizarrely, when I started in property, I had an idea of the brand I wanted to create, the values that sat behind it, the ability to kind of do, unsurprisingly, having spent so long in the marketing space, but I was able to put that together and tell a story quite quickly, because I knew in my heart what I wanted the business to be and what I stood for. And I remember you looking at that and going, oh, wow, that's amazing. Why don't you offer that as a service to other people? And I was sort of like, oh, okay. And then round the table we were sat, a couple of people said, oh, yeah, I'd love to work with you. And could you help me with my brand? And it was, and so you were responsible for another business that I ended up creating on the back of that as well, that was aligned to property. And that's where, for me, what was really sort of magical was this overlap of, actually, when you look back at your own history and talking about resources as well, you know, for me, there was nothing sort of lost from moving from one career into this. It was more taking a step back and thinking, actually, where were my strengths, contacts, and network, and how could I leverage that and point it in the direction I wanted to go as well. And the beautiful thing was that how can I help other people in the property space as well? So for me, there was this amazing triangulation that was happening of sort of me learning, me working with other people who were on a similar journey, but also, you know, dedicating all that time and passion and energy still into property. So, you know, you were massively responsible for me thinking about that. And yeah, I mean, in terms of network and people and everything else, I think, you know, I'm sure there's other people who maybe on this call who will feel this, but when you go from, you know, one particular space, or, you know, you're in a particular industry or career, you really attach your identity to that. And all of a sudden, trying to reposition yourself as something brand new, especially when you're early on in that journey, is quite challenging. So for me, one of the biggest things was sort of having the confidence to actually openly state, even on, you know, a social media post, oh, I'm a property investor, because I felt in my head, oh, unless I've got 10 properties, how can I actually say that? But sometimes you have to do that first to get to that stage. And I think that's why one of the things I love about your approach is very much this mindset first. You know, that unless you conquer that part, the other bits, I think, you know, can be more difficult. So for me, your help in being able to do that early on in my journey gave me the confidence to, you know, do all these other things that I actually didn't think possible at that stage in my own property education. So again, thank you.
But again, I think where it's at is you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, massive. You know, I think 10% knowledge, 90% mindset. And what you've definitely had is you went from this kind of position of just, you know, just overwhelmed, like we all do. We start off, there's so many things that you can do. You don't really know what to do. We still, even though, you know, a lot of the conversation, isn't it? Get rid of your preconceived ideas, but it's so hard to get rid of our preconceived ideas. So there you are going up to, you know, Manchester, and I you know, and seeing you there, just a little bit kind of frustrated and not really seeing that direction. And I absolutely loved it when you said, oh, yeah, maybe I could help other people with this kind of, you know, branding and marketing and all of this. And the fact that I think 4 out of and there was you and me, so there's only, I don't know, let's say 6 people, 4 out of the 6 went, well, we'd like that, Michael. It was just amazing, wasn't it? And then to see, you know, you helping so many people in the Touchstone community and further afield, I mean, that was, you know, really tremendous. And I think actually when you utilize those skills from the past, it means that you don't feel like this total new beginner, and you can grow. And I've absolutely loved watching all of your progression, because yeah, we've kept in contact, obviously, but I've seen it through social media, and that's actually a really nice way of stalking you. I quite like that kind of you know, that way. And certainly what I see in you is you definitely have this underlying, now whether it's actual or whether you really have to work at it, you've got this massive underlying confidence, not arrogance, that's totally different. But you've had some really tough times, but you kept going. You haven't really known which necessarily what is happening, what's not happening, but you've had this absolute vision and you've kept going with it. And I say, you know, credence to you. It's been such a lovely thing to watch, and taking on, you know, what for most people would be, you know, enormous projects. They are big projects, but you've literally taken them on and moved forward with it. So, you know, huge congrats.